Welcome to My Healing is Your Healing, a podcast for the woman who is ready to stop performing and reclaim her voice. I'm your host, Celeste, and around here, we don't do surface level. We go deep. Each week, we'll explore concepts like self-discovery, radical honesty, and the kind of healing that rewrites your story from the inside out. This is a space for truth-telling, for remembering who you are, and for coming home to yourself, louder, braver, and more radiant than ever. So come as you are, and let's do this together. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to My Healing is Your Healing. I'm your host, Celeste, and today is the beginning of something new. This episode opens the year of becoming, and it also marks the beginning of a new season inside the Radiant Women's Collective. So before we drop into the episode, I want to just offer you a quick invitation. The first Women's Circle starts next week. It's completely online, completely free, and it's truly come as you are. You don't need a perfect evening routine. You don't need clarity. You don't need to have everything figured out. The link is in the show notes. And if the time doesn't work for you, please message me because I'm building this to be accessible to any woman who wants a space to do this kind of work together. So for January, we are starting with identity. Not identity as in your job title, not even your relationship status, not your productivity level or how well you're holding it all together. Identity as in, who are you really? And how did you learn to be her? And I want to be very clear about this because this is not a new year, new you episode. This is not a resolution. This is not a glow up. This is the beginning of learning who you really are and why you are. Because if you don't know who you are deep down, you can spend your entire life building a life for a woman that you haven't actually met yet. So today's episode is called The Identity You Outgrew and the Woman You're Becoming Next. And what we're really talking about is this. Sometimes becoming someone new doesn't start with motivation. It starts with an ending. If you've been feeling kind of off lately, or if the old things in your life don't seem to fit anymore, or if you've been looking at your life and thinking, why does this feel wrong? You might not be failing. You might just be outgrowing an old identity. And we need to normalize this because when it happened to me, it felt weird as hell. Identity death precedes becoming someone new. We don't always just upgrade our identity. This isn't a makeover show where we slap on a cute outfit and keep the same inner world inside. Sometimes we outgrow an entire version of ourselves. But here's the part that matters. That version of you wasn't bad. There's nothing wrong with that person. She was often protective. She was adaptive. She was necessary. And she helped you survive the life that you were living. Your old identity had a purpose. It got you through. It kept you safe. And it helped you feel like you belonged. But becoming someone new begins when the costume that you've been wearing stops working. It doesn't fit the same. It rubs your skin raw. It feels too tight or too heavy or too fake. And once you feel that, you can't unfeel it. So here's where it gets a little messy. When you outgrow an identity, the old you doesn't just disappear overnight. She still shows up. Her old habits or old patterns, old longings, old ways of reacting or chasing or shrinking or overperforming. And then quietly, there's also this new emerging self. And she often feels unfamiliar. Sometimes she's quieter, a little less certain, but also more embodied and less performative. She might not be as loud or flashy, but she's not trying to convince anyone. She's just real. And this is why this in-between can feel so disorienting because you're molting the skin of an old life, while still learning how to live in a new one. You're not fully her yet, but you're not who you were either. So if you're in that space right now, the in-between, I need you to hear this because I just went through this. Growth is not linear. It could be cyclical or spiral shaped. It's the same lesson wearing a different outfit. And sometimes you'll catch yourself doing the old thing, the old pattern, the old longing, whatever it is, and think, oh my God, I did it again. The old version of you would use that moment to shame you, to spiral, to decide that you haven't actually changed. But the woman that you're becoming, she does something different. She notices the moment, she recognizes it, and then she learns. And she chooses again. And that is what becoming is. It's not perfection, but it's choice again and again and again. More and more in alignment with the person that you actually want to be. So, I want to talk about the part that nobody warned you about. There's grief that shows up in all of this identity work. It's not just grief over people. It's grief over versions of yourself. Because you knew that last version of yourself. Intimately, you lived as her. You worked hard to become her. At one point in your life, she was the woman you wanted to be. And even if she wasn't the truest version of you, she was still familiar, very familiar. And so you might grieve her, the certainty that you had in the life that she was living, the belonging that she felt, the dreams that you were attached to in that timeline, or the conveyor belt that you thought you were on, the path that you were on, the story you believed would eventually work out. And there's a reason that we cling to these familiar lives, even if they are painful ones. Because the pain that you know feels safer than the unknown that you can't predict. But I do want you to hear this clearly. Grief does not mean that you made the wrong choice. It just means that you cared. It means that your identity mattered to you. And it means that you're human. And when grief shows up in your becoming, it does not mean go back. It does not mean turn around. It does not mean you have ruined everything. It means honor what it cost to get you here. Now, I want to get really real with you here. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, some of this might sound familiar, but it matters that I say it here. The last 2 years of my life have been this slow and holy dismantling. It started with me walking away from the altar, and then I moved halfway across the country. I left behind friendships, proximity, old roles, and old routines. And honestly, even entire versions of myself. And the question that kept haunting me was this: who am I without the role that I knew how to play? Without approval from the outside world? Without a man? And without the version of me that knows how to be chosen, how to be perfect? Because for a long time, I didn't just date men. I absorbed them. Their preferences became mine. Their pace in life became my pace. Their life became my structure, and their opinions became my opinions. So when those relationships ended, it wasn't just a heartbreak. It was an entire identity collapse. I wasn't just losing them. I was losing the version of me who I became next to them. And the last 2 years have been one long relearning process. What do I actually like? What do I want my life to feel like? What kind of love do I want? What kind of friendships do I want? How do I want to speak? What do I want to do in my life when no one's there clapping for me? And I will not sugarcoat this. This has been a truly lonely time sometimes. There are moments when I'm just sitting at my kitchen table and I feel that ache. Wow, it is just me. That can be painful. But I also have seen daily evidence of my becoming process. And this part matters There are still some parts of me that are old Celeste. There are still some parts of me that wish she could magically be different, faster, healed, done. And sometimes I catch myself in a cycle, one of those old patterns, and I think, oh my God, I'm doing it again. That thing that I promised myself I wouldn't do. But the difference now is I don't punish myself. I don't decide that it means that I'm failing. I practice grace and I say, okay, that's the old identity reaching for safety. Because familiar doesn't mean that it's aligned. It just means that it's known. So then I ask a different question. What would the woman that I'm becoming choose instead? Because that woman, that future version of me, isn't built in just one defining moment. She's built in 1,000 tiny decisions every single day. So I want to name something that deeply matters in all of this identity work. There's 3 versions at play here. There's the first one, the persona, which you show to the world. There's the truth of who you're becoming in private. And then the third one is the woman that you are becoming. Persona is what you've learned to be, whether that's polished or palatable, presentable or fine. Truth is who you are when no one is watching, when you're not performing for approval, when you're dancing in your kitchen or crying on the floor or laughing too hard. And becoming is what happens when you align your life with your core values, not your fear or your conditioning or your old patterns. Your values are your compass. And if you don't know them, you'll build a life based on reaction or on other people's preferences or what looks good or what feels safe. And this is why doing this identity work matters before you go out and date or form relationships or even goals. Because if you don't know who you are, you'll keep trying to be loved as a version of you that isn't even real. And you'll call it chemistry when it's actually just familiarity. So this week, your toolbox is your core values. So I have 3 questions that I want you to sit with. The first one is, what do I want my life to feel like this year? Not look like, but feel like. Number 2 is, what do I want to be known for? Whether that's in love, in friendships, in your leadership at work, or just in your life. Number 3 is, what am I no longer willing to tolerate? Because identity shows up in your standards and your boundaries, not just your dreams. And if you want the simplest values prompt of all, this is it. If no one was watching, how would you live? That answer is closer to your identity than anything else. So I've also created a free core values PDF to help you with this. You can download it on my website. It's myhealingisyourhealing.com, and it walks you through identifying your top 5 to 7 core values and integrate them into your real life. And if you start with 20, that's okay. The worksheet will help you narrow them down. So if you are in the in-between phase right now, if you feel like you're shedding your old life, if you don't fully recognize yourself anymore, you are not late. You are not progressing or a failure, and you are not broken. You are just in the process of becoming. And becoming is not a failure. Think of it like a threshold or a doorway, and you're standing in it, and you're right on time. So, if this episode landed for you, come find us inside of the Radiant Women's Collective. It is free, it is online, and it begins next week. The link again is in the show notes. Bring your tea, bring your honesty, and bring your unpolished self. Next week on our podcast, we are going even deeper because identity isn't just what you say about yourself. It's what you choose again and again. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and remember, you were never meant to dim your light. Thanks for tuning in and being here, for healing out loud, and for walking this path beside me. If this episode cracked something open or helped you remember a part of yourself, pass it on and share it with someone you love. For more support, free resources, or the next steps to your journey, head over to my website, myhealingisyourhealing.com. And if you loved today's conversation, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your words help this space grow and help more women find their way home to themselves. If I was your muse today, then my healing is your healing. Until next time.